As a continuation of our series with Asian American Heritage Month at CR's Social Digital and across New Mexico, I'm really excited to introduce Brady Wakayama from Channel 13, KRQE News. Brady, thank you so much for joining us. This has just been so exciting to get to know you and also seeing where your career is jumping. Thanks for joining me on this special series. We really appreciate
Well,
it.
yeah, thanks so much for having me. I mean, when you told me about this, I was like, of course, I am all in. Let's do it.
Most definitely. And so you have a connection, I think, which is really fun. Like you have a connection with some of the people who've entered, you've known Joy, especially, I understand everybody in the news business, especially knows each other. So, Joy, Stella's son, which is great, and other phenomenal Asian reporters that we've had throughout the years here in Albuquerque. But why Albuquerque? Why did you decide to move here, and how did you get here? Like, tell us a little bit about your story of being in the news business.
Exactly. So how I got here is pretty much I went to college, went to Washington State University, go Cougs, of course. And I studied at the Edward R. Murrow College of Communication. So just definitely a vast history, long history of great broadcasters coming out of that program. And once I was done with college, then I was lucky enough to start my first market in Eugene, Oregon. So that's like market 120. And I was there for about 2.5 years, really enjoyed my time there. And then after a while, we all gotta step up and keep on climbing that ladder. I applied to Albuquerque because it's a top 50 market. It's 47, 48 or whatnot, and that's quite a jump. And I knew that I wanted to hit top 50 after my first market. And also just the sun. It's obviously sunny here, and I have a couple of family friends here, and I actually Megan Abundis with Channel 4. She's also a kook. She's a classmate. She's a close friend. And also Connor Lewis, he was a meteorologist at KRQE. He came from the same market that I did, Eugene, Oregon, at the ABC station. And I was like, I'm in. Let's do it. So yeah, that's a quick little summary of what happened there.
So I'll even go a little bit
Mhm.
further. One of the
Yeah.
things I love hearing is, a lot of people go into journalism and sometimes they don't pursue a journalism career, including me, including some of my social media practitioners or public relations professionals here, but you stuck with it, which I think is phenomenal. So why did you stick with media? What got you into journalism? What makes it such a passion of yours?
Exactly. So my, I guess passion for journalism goes in a couple directions. Essentially, growing up, similar to other little boys, I was like, okay, I want to be a professional athlete. Well, that definitely didn't work out. So what's like the next best thing? And that's, broadcasting sports. And, we talked about this sort of off camera, but the opportunities in sports wasn't as much as it was in, general news. Um, so that's when I sort of shifted that way. But even before that too, I mean, with news, we're meeting people, we're talking to people, we're learning. And just growing up in Seattle, Washington, my family, they're heavily involved in, the philanthropic, scene or whatnot, and especially in the Asian community. And that's where I got to, get out of my shell, meet different people, and I guess, care for a variety of things. And that's sort of what got me going to this is great. I get to meet new people, and I can also serve the community. That's why journalism was just a perfect match for that, because that's what we do every day: meet new people, serve the community, and learn new things, really. So it's been incredible. The great people I've met here is just wow.
And that's so cool. I can wholeheartedly understand where you're coming from, like serving your community and looking at the different perspectives, telling the stories of people, especially since it's not your story, but you're helping them get their story out. And of course, being an Asian American, it adds a new element to it. So you have a very interesting family dynamic. I didn't realize that your cultures of origin are Japan and China. Is that correct?
Yeah, so my mom is Chinese, my dad's Japanese, and on my mom's side, I guess I'm the fifth generation. My dad's side, the fourth generation American. So we've been here for quite a while, and yeah, they just taught me a lot of, great things over the years, just like other parents, but, values and, just again, being yourself, being comfortable in your own skin. I know that that's what we always talk about of, as people of colors being comfortable in your own skin, but it does take a while. It does take a while. I grew up in Seattle, Washington, and I was the only Asian guy. So, it takes a while to get out of your shell, but, you just gotta have the right people surrounding you, hopefully family, and just go for it. I guess just try and loosen up a little bit, and never forget too. I mean, we can never forget, where we have come from too. So it's, I credit, the generations before me on my mom and dad's side for, and then it's just the trickle down effect, and then teaching them, what needs to be taught. So yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the beauty of, that's the beauty of having somebody that's multi-generational Asian, especially a fourth or fifth generation immigrant. And so I am curious that since you've moved here, what about New Mexico makes it very unique as being an Asian American? I shared my story a little bit about how it was very difficult for me to find an Asian community when I first moved here almost 20 years ago. We moved in 2001, but you just moved here, what, less than 2 years ago? Is that right? And what about that time, within the time that you spent here so far, what makes New Mexico so unique for us Asian Americans in your perspective?
Yeah, for starters, I just want to say credit to you because you have welcomed me with open arms. I was just at a store and you're just like, hey, like, what's going on? What's going on? I was like, this is great energy. I love this. So that's for starters. And, what makes New Mexico so unique is that, it's a melting pot. We hear that all the time because, it's Hispanic, it's indigenous, and some white folks too, and there's not too many Asians, but as you're sort of saying off camera, more Asians are steadily coming here. I don't really have an answer why. I don't think that any of us do, but maybe it's the sun, I don't know. But that's what has made it so great, because there's all these different types of people already. So at the same time, now other folks, other Asians are starting to steadily come here too, just maybe noticing how diverse it is. We're a small percentage, don't get me wrong, but this is just the beginning of what's to come, because I mean, we're coming, especially with Netflix, with Amazon, coming. There's a lot of good things coming here in New Mexico.
And you bring up a really good point. So, as a general assignment reporter for KRQE, you've covered a multitude of different topics. How was covering, some of the stories that you might have seen? I'm sure that there's a really unique opportunity at KRQE when you have the opportunity to cover an Asian-related story, whether it be good, bad, ugly type of news. And so, how have you interacted with the Asian community as a reporter here in New Mexico?
Exactly. As I sort of alluded to, there's not too many of us. So when we get the opportunity to speak with or meet with, our own Asian community or Asian American community, I pounce on it. And obviously I'm, unfortunately the only, as far as I know, yeah, really the only Asian American at my station for the most part, is at least on air. So when these stories pop up about, stop Asian hate, and I've reported on, various stories about the vandalism, the hate crimes that have even been happening here in Albuquerque, because unfortunately it's been certainly a trend the past year. I certainly stand up for those stories and I pitch those stories, and I try to fight for those stories, really, just because you can't forget about us. I get that there's a small percentage, but these are the stories that need to be heard. This isn't right, what's happening around our country. So again, these are the stories that need to be told. Everybody's story needs to be told, but it's just interesting time in the media for sure.
100%. Well, let's think about now, right? It's very difficult to sometimes even swallow some of these conversations that we're having of hearing of vandalism. But obviously, there was a bright time, right, where we were growing up. Like we're two young people, two young Asian Americans. So I am curious, as you started to look at your career and as you started to look at storytelling, has there been any like Asian American role models that you've had, or other individual Asian people that you might have known that you're like, I want to be like them, or I want to grow up to be like them, or I saw this reporter and he or she was Asian, I want to be like them? Did you have any like role models, even if it's not media related, but did you have any role models in the Asian community that's kind of led you to where you are now?
Yeah, so as I was saying, I grew up in Seattle, Washington, and there's this news anchor who just retired a couple of years ago, and she's a mentor of mine, Lori Matsukawa. She worked at King 5, the NBC station. She has been absolutely amazing, and just the way that she, went through her career with just such, class and professionalism, and one of the most knowledgeable and kind people I know. She was certainly somebody that I looked up to and I still rely on today for advice. And, as far as like other folks too, there's some, sportscasters, Kerry Chow, Michael Kim, they were with ESPN. They're no longer there, but they sort of set the tone as Asian men, because that's the thing. Let's just be honest. You don't see too many Asian men in the news. You do see, a handful of Asian women, but Asian men. So that's sort of what led me to that as well, because we're here too, the Asian men, and I certainly want to represent for them as well, along with the Asian community just in general.
That's so cool. And you're right. I look at some of the Asian reporters on network television, and there's only like a handful that are women, and obviously Asian, and rarely are they men. And I think one of the things that's also really cool too is that you're part of a generation that's starting to break barriers of who we see as TV and role models. And I am curious though, to kind of move forward, like what are some of the things that you've seen as a media professional, that you think that you wish you knew when you were younger, right? You're looking at the role models, which is great, but do you have any other advice? Do you have any advice for people that were you maybe 10, 15 years ago in college? I'm not saying that you were in college 15 years ago. That was me, right? But, do you have any advice for other Asian people, men, women, that are transgender, cisgender, whatever they might be, that are, generation, 3 generations ahead of you, or 3 generations beforehand? But do you have any advice for other Asian Americans that are looking to break into the media, to the marketing industry, obviously in journalism? Any advice that you would pass on to them?
Well, not to put too much pressure on these folks, because but I think that big part of it is just really pushing for it. If you have a goal, if you have a dream, and especially when it comes to media too, representation, that's the word that's thrown out all the time, that it matters, which it certainly does. But a huge part of that is actually getting there. So let's keep on working hard and, really striving for that, because especially the media industry, it's really, really tough to crack. Whether it's just your looks, or, they might not, like the way you sound, or this or that. But, a huge thing is, and again, it's sort of the theme here, but is being true to yourself, knowing who you are, because if you don't know just the basics of yourself, and I get it, a lot of us are still figuring each other out, but, you got to be true to yourself, and really just keep on pushing and striving for that, and realize too, at least for me, this is sort of what I think of, it's bigger than just my journey. Your journey is really ensuring that other people can follow you, and continue that. So we have more Asian Americans in the media, more Asian men in the media. So I certainly take that responsibility seriously, and I hope that people can definitely reach out to me if they need any advice or whatnot. But also just keep on pushing, and don't let others tell you like, oh, you don't have the right look, or you're not good enough, because we can work on some of these things, and hopefully accomplish what we want.
Yeah, 100%. And I think one of the things that's, kind of saying along those lines, like pushing for what you want, and, finding ways to achieve your goals. I think one of the things, and this is kind of my last question to kind of help wrap up, You're very approachable, and you're very like you have a warming personality that many people might not see behind the camera or in front of the camera, of course, but many people see it behind the camera. But if somebody wanted to, in the spirit of CR's to Social Digital being a public relations firm, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you or pitch a story or have lunch with you or tell you about something really interesting or unique in their community that might be a story for you, what advice do you have for other public relations practitioners that are wanting to break into the business in journalism, or any journalists that are looking, to explore this market? Do you have any advice for the future of our trade in media or marketing?
For starters, you got to shoot your shot. I mean, I know that we always talk about sliding in the DMs or whatnot, but no, that's the first step, because how else do you reach these folks? So certainly follow them on social media, and then they'll at least notice you, and then slide into the DMs. But as far as your pitch per se, and this is what I have to work on too, because we pitch stories to our news team every day, is you just got to realize again the significance, the amount of people it impacts, because that's what we're always curious about, and at the same time also its uniqueness or timeliness as well. So those are some key factors, and I have to work on it myself when I pitch stories, truthfully. But those are some of the key things that can grab our attention, because as you know, we're going so many different ways. So if we see a certain message and we don't know you, it'll take a couple seconds where we're either like, yeah, I don't know, or like, whoa, you got me hooked. So that's sort of the elevator pitch, right?
Most definitely. Well, this was really phenomenal advice and some really genuine time. So thank you so much for being here with me on this segment. I know people can find you at krqe.com, and thanks to your news director and also to you for taking the time to let us talk to another advertising agency owner, and most importantly, talk to a fellow Asian American in our community. And thanks for everything you do here in New Mexico. We really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for putting this on, obviously, and I look forward to watching more of these interviews and learning more, and just really thank you for being, one of the main folks in our community, stepping up and bringing us together. I mean, we really appreciate you. So thank you so much for your time.
And if there's anything that I can do to return the favor, don't hesitate to reach out. But thanks to everyone for tuning in. Look forward to seeing you on our favorite social media channel.
Perfect. Thank you.